And we are back. Back with Bleed, Vince. Our debut game was with these boys. It was their debut game as well. And now they go face-to-face versus AVANGAR. And it's a Mirage. God, I haven't seen a Mirage today. It's been quite nice.
That's true, yeah. We've kind of had a nice culmination of multiple different maps. And so now Mirage is next up on the plate. Bleed on the CT side of AVANGAR. Up against them. And Faven. So many angles that he was watching, but it was just right at the perfect moment through Palace, but he couldn't connect any of the dots until their feet touched the ground. And now 2 players remain for AVANGAR. Surely no chance into this as Cirque bumps head-to-head in the smoke with 4keys, deals with him accordingly, and this round actually over pretty damn fast. Bleed only taking 1 casualty, and that was Lunks.
Nice opening round. Exactly what you'd want. And Bleed, it's been looking pretty good for him so far. Obviously being able to consistently lop some heads off throughout the course of the Open qualifiers. We thought it might be a bit of a rough ride for him, but the roster's clearly been doing some work. And at least as well, you know, on the back of the map talk, getting a Mirage means that we do have an opportunity to see some very aggressive plays from Cypher on both T and CT, and it's room to breathe for an AWPer, right? Surely this is where, if we're going to get an eye test for Cirque, it would probably be the best map for it. Ooh, Hampus. God, that was a crispy way to open things. Even the HE off the back slows down the push as well, but he's sniping with the MP9, Vince.
Yeah, lovely movement as well to shield himself from that HE that was tossed in. So afforded him the luxury of not taking the brunt of that high ordnance. And in doing so, tons of intel. Lonks now charges straight down into a dicey position, but it's just against the Glock, so he should prevail with 2 kills. Money in the bank. And although Tasman has picked himself up a kill and an MP9 alongside it, he does not have access to the bomb. So there will be no shenanigans with a post plant coming in here. He has to face the music, face the executioners. There will be no stay of execution, as Faven should have him. A bit laboured, to be fair, but he gets the job done eventually. And Bleed cruise to a 2-0 lead.
First 2 secured. How far can the streak go here? It's nice as well because we get a different map. It means we get to see what camera pans have been cooked up from big old Bastion behind the scenes. I like the look of this one. That was quite nice. The way it zoomed out and down. A lot of talent on that one. He could be a professional drone pilot if he wanted to, Vince. You know, I've seen him competing in the World Championship for drone racing, but he said, you know what? I'd rather be a CS observer.
Yeah, he can't put patties on a drone. It's not safety, so...
The blades
not
get stuck, Vince.
I'm really trying to make this sick for him.
We'll bring in the cat ears and it'll all be sound. It'll all be smoothed over. Hampus in again, up to his old tricks with the MP9, causing a bit of a stir here towards B. Cirque's already found 1, and this is usually where he was kind of prime Cirque, right? You kind of have him backside B with the AWP. He'd hit some wrist breakers of up-close shots. It always felt like he was really good in the close-range fights. Instead, it's Lonks that's bailing him out, brings it back down into a 2v1. Oh, pepper spray with the AK, but not on target enough to shut down Lonks. So a 3rd round goes the way of Bleed.
Yeah, a bit of a scrappy one, wasn't it? I mean, I feel like Cirque, he's been away for what, like 6 or 7 months. A chance to have some RMR, just sort of chill and maybe refresh himself for CS2, but a player of his caliber never really seemed to live up to the mantle that a lot of us expected. Maybe with Kassad behind him in that coaching role, we'll see Cirque unleashed. So far today, though, we've not seen the best of him by any stretch of the imagination. Wasn't really required in our first game, of course. And Lonks tosses in a few bullets and a HC alongside it. Just easy pickings with that M4A1S, and it could be more where that came from. Effectively, we've casted Bleed today, and it's looking like they're going to go, what, 17-0 in terms of their overall score after that 13-0 dismantling of Grand Team in our very first game. Unless AVANGAR can pull off this 2v5 with just Desert Eagles by their side.
Seems like it, mate. Ooh, crisp as ever. Lunks has really been showing up as well. Now, I think for a lot of people, he was kind of the big hot prospect, was on the tip of everyone's tongues, right? When you were seeing this roster being formed, there was a few questions for a couple of the players. Some of them that I think, it kind of just depends on what your sort of backing is. A few of them are kind of like Marmite. Personally, I think Cypher's really good. I think he's going to be someone that can go really far. I think there's room for Cirque to either tip on either side of the scales, right? He's either going to really show up, come back into his old form, and be able to scale with a roster like this massively, or he might not have that comeback that potentially he could. He could be left in the dirt. That's a bit of a rough one. Team kill coming through as Tasman, as he'll shut down his main man to make this round a bit harder. But Lunks, he's definitely that fragger that people wanted to see, that people knew had a ton of talent. And I think with a good roster behind him here, with a team that you've built, if this is one of those events where, behind the scenes in terms of the Bleed camp, if they get on with each other, if they're a friendly roster, if they can have a bit of banter, Lunks could really come out of his shell and potentially have so much to prove into CS2, because we're seeing the skill.
Oh, the guy is definitely up there, in that Sprout lineup that we saw, and definitely one of the players that stood out from the crowd. He's still super young, 18 years of age. Hampus, in the meanwhile, though, more a veteran, a grizzled player. And Favn alongside him. Great place grenade. We'll see Black Magic drop down to 48. And the smoke behind it, they know exactly where he is. They've definitely spotted him now. And Hampus, easy pickings, was notified that apparently Bleed won the last game 13-5. So they have bled a little bit today. But, I mean, this has been flawless so far, Jacky. You can't really pick any real problems out of this. A couple of scrappy moments on the B site, maybe a few rounds ago, but apart from that, it's been very smooth indeed.
A bit of blood for the blood god, Vince. It's got to happen, right? You've got to pay tribute where possible. And 5 rounds sounds acceptable. A little donation. Bit of bloodletting never went wrong. The Victorians just do it all the time. Made them feel great, and they're probably still around. If timelines didn't work out the way they do. Lunks looking for the opening, though. He's not going to go the way of the Victorians yet, as he's still standing. And that's a glimpse from the past. Old school Sir coming swinging at middle. Finds himself a 2-piece as well as he doubles up with the smoke shot. That's what you want to see. I'd love to have that confidence back on him. It feels like that was really, for me, the one thing that sort of tipped the balance, was how he looked like he had his confidence kind of rattled out of him, Vince. And then he wasn't going for those crazy shots. I remember way back, one of his Pro League debuts, covering it on the B stream. You kind of had people calling him like this, Bulgarian bulldozer, Bulgarian cannonball, because he would just decimate you. He'd run in, wield in the AWP like a shotgun, and find multiple pickups. And it was fun to watch. Very explosive way of taking fights. If we get that back, it would be beautiful. He's trying his luck, Vince. He wants to give it to us.
Gonna clear that smoke out. A little bit slow there on the trigger. Tasman punishes him. Now Cypher in. We know how explosive he can be. 2 kills go his way. Now Hampus stands tall and helps out his teammate. Allows himself to also dip, duck, and dive back into the ladder room. He's actually gone back into window, so Hampus is really rotated, and that leaves TND King and all sorts of bother. 23 ADR to his name with an AWP. Minute and 10 on the clock. Has options available. Yeah, it was around that 2017 sort of time. He was playing for Outlaws and then moved to NRG, where I think Cirque was at his absolute peak. 2017, 2018 was in a bunch of finals against like Na'Vi and Liquid and Star Series and the Intel Masters, where they actually beat Tyloo at Shanghai. Those were definitely the high points for Cirque, but that's a good 4 or 5 years ago at this point,
It is wild, isn't it, how much time has passed? A whole new game as well, Vince. I think that's the difference. You're kind of seeing that rebirth of Cirque in CS2. Here, TND King, he's gone for the long old rotate the whole way round towards B. Just walks up on the bench. Hampus, it looked like maybe he had his hand off his mouse for a second there, or just eyes on the radar, calling for the team, but finds the adjustment, shuts him down, and throws the AWP back over. So an AWP in play again for Cirque. Money in the bank as well, but you're not going to turn your nose up at a free one.
Certainly not. No reason to go for dual AWPs either. I mean, the option would be available. They've gone for kind of like a miniature version, as we do have a pause coming in. They have the Org in the hands of Faven, which is perfectly serviceable on a map like Mirage. Plenty of longer range angles that you can try and tap heads. The concerning part for me for AVANGAR, though, is that collectively they have themselves, what, 10 kills, and we're moving into round 8. I mean, simply put, nobody is over 61 ADR. And you compare that to the other side, Faven's on 44 ADR, but he's got 1 death. He just hasn't been required. The action is all bypassed him. 7-0 paints a pretty bleak picture. And in all honesty, it's an accurate picture, Jacky. This has been a complete and utter demolition job. AVANGAR haven't got any kind of stability, any kind of momentum built up.
And they just can't find any kind of way to take the battering ram to Bleed. You know, when they've gone for the mid pushes, Cirque shows up a little bit, starts to smite them on entry. If he falters, Cypher's there ready to rip his way through them with the AK. If they go for a faster play towards one of the bomb sites, if you go B, Hampus is there as the bouncer. He's checking IDs, he's taking names, he's saying no one's coming in today. Going back out towards middle this time with prioritization through 2 players walking up underpass. Maybe this will be a little bit different. You could go for the boost up into window, but Launx is going to be on the other side. And he's had the game on lockdown. He's been crisp. Even if you challenge him on an off angle like this, if you give him a second to react, he's going to bite your head off. Got contact onto the back of the player there as well. So opts to create space, back round through the window so he can rotate off to protect his teammates on B. Tasman goes in for the attack, strikes on the first. Hampus has fallen as well. And now you've got an opportunity to push towards the B site. Cirque, that's a rough miss, Vince. Can he recover?
He's going to get pincered in as well. He knows there's a player last spotted in window that hasn't been dealt with just yet. So he's constantly in the back of his mind got that player, which is Tasman, who is now pounced. And that's always going to play hell. It's going to play havoc with an AWPer, not feeling settled, not feeling like you can focus all of your attention frontwards, but you always have one eye looking over your shoulder. It was a bad miss. It's a shot you expect him to connect, but it looks like, at least from our stream's perspective, the Bleed are going to concede their first round of today as AVANGAR finally strike gold. It took them 8 rounds. But better late than never. Cypher should be able to hold on to this AK-47 though. And of course, one of the perks of losing so few players in the previous rounds is they have a ton of cash at their disposal to replenish those fallen weapons.
Yeah, they are rolling in the dough right now. I imagine what it feels like to work at a bakery and have a mattress in the back, also made of dough. You got to sleep on the job, Vince. That's what they do in the old bakery. Flash left in spawn. You can always come and pick that one up on the rotate. Might be handy a little bit later. AVANGAR with a first round in the pocket, though. What more can they achieve? Oh, Foxy diving around the corner with the smoke in the palm. And he's been tackled. Rugby overthrow from Cypher that will shut that man down. He's already roaming, Vince. Back over towards the A site, looking for the peek up. Cypher just feels like he's always where the fight is.
Yeah, he brings the fire. He brings the thunder with him to make sure that you are on your tiptoes where Cypher is involved. I mean, when you have such a vast lead and everything's working out, that confidence just oozing, coursing through the veins. You can understand as Cirque nearly got timed out of that position. And it does aim back down the site in order to see the second player. Tasman stuck in connector. There's no real way for him to escape either as Hampus is watching from short. But it's going to be that man again. Cypher on spot to deliver. More pain, more suffering, and more importantly for Bleed, more rounds. As less Divisor or Black Magic can try and turn this one back, but they got 40 seconds. All 5 players of Bleed are healthy. I just don't see how this is possible, Jacky. This feels like it is not going to happen for AVANGAR. It's going to be a one and done.
Seems like it. Really isn't too much that you can build off the back of this. I mean, 20 seconds on the clock. Just holding on to what you've got is the best possible outcome through this, but even that's going to send a shiver down your spine, Vince. The opportunity of losing that AWP off the back of the peak from stairs there, especially so close to time being over. Now this is rough. Now you want to die before time. Don't want to give up the AWP afterwards and leave yourself in a horrible spot. He is clutching onto it. Luckily saves himself the arduous journey. And we'll be able to drop that back over. So weapons could be redistributed. Still had a bit of funds in the back pocket as well. So the buy will come back in. Reassess what you've got to work with here. What assets are still actually on your side. Meanwhile, Bleed, they don't have to run any of these factors into what they're doing. They don't have to worry about money. They don't have to worry about setups. It seems like they are just taking the fight to them and being able to open up with free frags time and time again. Cirque, back at mid, stationed for the early aggression. I've liked the utility they've been using as well to gain control towards top mid. The smoke's being good. You've got the Molotov into the back line. Cypher with the timing actually gets ahead just as they break the smoke to look for the pickup onto the connector player. He's got himself tucked down into underpass and they had no idea, Vince. 2 free headshots found. Foxy catches him on the rotate, sure, but you're still willing in the battle of attrition. You've got the edge here.
Yeah, dude, they've got to keep it sharp, though. Can't afford this to get dulled down by a couple of stray bullets to their domes. Lonks nearly loses his life. He's played an excellent game so far, Mirage, but elsewhere, casualties hitting the deck. Black Magic making Faven disappear momentarily, and that gives Forkies the chance to make a move up. If they take that opportunity, comes down to timing, spots Hampus and delivers the fatal blow. Suddenly B-side's ripe for the taking, and that rotation out from Lonks means there's no one here to defend that. Bleed have a decision to make. They've got money, and quite a bit of it, but do they want to throw these 2 weapons away in a 2v3 post-plant on B-side? It's such a hard site to retake, especially with an AWP.
It's a spooky one to be facing. Best case scenario, Lonks maybe just finds a couple of frags, makes it rough for him on exit, and rocks the boat for the getaway. They want to hold on to the AKs. Lonks will be found. Cirque just playing for the exit round towards CT side. If they're smart, they all leave together. You know you've got control towards apps. There's only 1 player left alive on the CT side. Don't even give him the opportunity. Don't even give him a thimble of a chance of getting back into this one. And just cruise on through. Keep the AKs in play. Far better to work off your own economy rather than looking to damage the CTs at this point. Still, a second round. It's not going to be much, but it is still going to help them out. Cirque, heart rate going up as he hears the footsteps, but he keeps the weapon alive.
That's going to be a frustrating round if you're Cypher, though. Like, all the work he did with that rotation into underpass, the perfect timing, the double spray, headshot. He put them in the best possible stead. It was effectively a 3v5 that AVANGAR just pulled back out of the fire. It's got to be frustrating if you Bleed, but I has to get right back on the prize. Flash is good, but TND King's aim on point. Timing up to scratch. 2-for-1 trade. Much better from AVANGAR.
It's good openers. Just got to maintain pace. It's the mid-round that's all important now. Still 1 minute and 30 on the clock. Faven sleeping at the wheel as he waltzes his way in towards the site. Hampus saw the barrel, eyes up the prize, and takes down TND King. Knocks the crown off. Forksies needs to stab into Hampus on this one. Throws the nade over towards the arches. Goes for the wide flank. Hampus not ready for it. He goes down, and it's all on Lonks. He's got the big green gun in his hands. It's a 1v2 situation to be dealing with. Retake on the AWP, never easy for a B-side take, but if he can pull it off, Vince, it'll be a 9th in the pocket, and we know he's got the talent.
He's not necessarily a stranger to the AWP either. He can definitely use this weapon, but that's a beautiful shot from Divisor. And to be fair, even if Divisor didn't get that frag, he was going to get backstabbed anyway, was Long. So AVANGAR, out of nowhere, looking hopeless, looking lost, marooned at sea. I've picked up 3 of the last 4 rounds. I've broken that economy down to a position where Cirque is on a scout, an M4 in play, and the rest of the players on Deagles. A far cry from where they were just 5 or 6 minutes ago. A chance and an 8-4 half, which wouldn't be the end of the world for AVANGAR. Make no mistake, they're well up and up against it right here, especially as Lonks gets 2 Ds through window. Out of nowhere, makes them disappear. Beautiful play by him.
Oh, Vince, that's despicable, bud. He's a bad magician. That's absolutely ridiculous. He's just split them in half off the back of the face towards window. Whew. We've seen some dirty deagling today. The endpoint game had some bangers with Switcher pulling no punches, but here, that is crisp, that is clinical, and that is insult to injury. Around where AVANGAR were hoping they could get some momentum, you've just been bullied with the deagle. 50 caliber pain delivered straight to your cranium.
Just as we were talking about a potential 8-4 half, and it could still happen. They're not done just yet, are AVANGAR. Digging their heels into the deck, refusing to lose as Tasman goes in for another. His second of the round, well-placed HE, but it's unconfirmed damage. Tasman was behind the smoke, covered, but now covered in his own blood. As Hamper shows up, but it's his turn to deal the damage with the Deeg. But Lonks will lose his life, and there is Hampus with the M4. It will go the way of Bleed. 2 exquisite shots from Lonks. Full circle at the end for Hampus with his 3K. And Bleed will lead 9-3 come the second half.
Whoa, mate. The fancy footwork put in with the Deagles there is absolutely incredible. Big plays. Big momentum shift. Difference of giving up a few more rounds to AVANGAR, letting them feeling more confident as they go into their CT side. Doesn't go that way. Absolutely smites them. There was a blessed deagle in the Bleed camp on that one. And now you're looking at a really important pistol round as well for either side. If Bleed pick this up, the momentum swing is going to be gargantuan. It could coast you right through to the finish line. For AVANGAR, it's the way to finally get a grasp on the game. CT side pistol on Mirage. It'll give you a bit of stock to work with, but what's the idea? They've gone for 5 sets of armor. Kevlar across the board. No kit, no util, just raw gunplay.
They've decided their way of winning this round is just through brute force. They're going to stand. They're going to try and deliver. They're trying to put the shields down. And it's going to have to be planted firmly onto B because here come Bleed. And it's an insta-headshot on both sides. TNT King, though, getting himself 2. And they're keeping players alive on Get Right for short side. Forkies is still yet to fall. Cirque is the next player to go into the crosshair, but Lonks with that P250 has spun this round on its head. Tasman now with 1 dink. They desperately require this round. But Tasman doesn't get overzealous. Has a bit of clarity in that chaos. Backs away, effectively yielding the bomb plant. But he's okay with this. He's on the long flank to short side. I love this play from Tasman. It may not work out for him, though, because he's up against the aim god himself of Lonks in a 1v1.
He's making noise for it as well, Vince. He's giving the game away with the loud feet round the corner. Thunder footing his way up short. Lonks knew all too well what the setup was. Heard him backstepping off, going for the long rotate. Read it like a book. Sets up for the close quarters engagement on short. 1 bullet's all he needs. And Bleed, again, move forward. It felt like maybe there was a chance for Tasman in that spot. Could have been the talisman that AVANGAR needed to step back into the game. But only 1 frag away from his hopes becoming reality. Here, heavy setup as well. AVANGAR go for a 4-man stack towards the A site. You've got 1 player in TND King looking for the aggressive play out on short, scoping for info towards mid. MP9 in his hand, so it's all about close range. He's got to play an off angle on short or inside a ladder room. Hampus already deep below window. You get the smoke up, molly into short. TND King tries to reset and reassess where he can effectively play at this point. Paranoid about the push-up through window, but they're already in connector, Vince. Baited on the face, at least, towards Palace. They see Black Magic, and he gets away alive.
Disappears into the mist, but there is the repeat as he envelops Cypher. Gets his entry, but it's at the cost of his life. But now from behind, Lonks goes in for 2, and suddenly the CTs have evaporated. Pushed away into an early grave, and Bleed just 2 rounds shy of securing their spot in the next round of these qualifiers. AVANGAR on the brink of defeat, and they decide they're going to go in for a few deagles. But they're on their last life here, Jacky. They have such little room for error.
Confidence is going to be absolutely rattled as well. They've had some opportunities, Vince. That's the sad part, right? This isn't a game by any means that I'm saying, yeah, this could have been neck and neck, but it could have been a bit closer than it is right now. AVANGAR have had some really good chances thrown their way, but they've just let it slip through the fingertips, something that has not been happening for Bleed. Hampus has been showing up and proving that the X-Len IP man can deliver when it matters. Cypher is still absolutely sickening at any opportunity where he has a weapon to work with. Swing him out on mid, throw him in for an entry. He will rattle you to your core. And the CTs at this point, they realize there's no fat left on this one, Vince. There's nothing to chew. You're just down to 2 Deagles in a horrendous retake scenario. Nades blowing up at your feet, and Forksies falls.
He most certainly does, as will Divisor at the end from the Swedes' hand with a 4K on top of it. And you know, the terrifying part of this to me as well, Jacky, is, you know, we've been talking quite a bit about Cirque. He's not really been present in this game. You know, he's 6-6 with 5 assists, 57 ADR. He hasn't been required because Lawrence has just been tearing it up. Cypher's been super impactful, and Hampus has had a great game as well. All 3 of them over 100 ADR. So it just makes you think, man, if Cirque was activated and playing to sort of his B or A game, I mean, this would just be an absolute massacre. Speaking of which, though, Hampus gets nailed by the King's AWP through mid.
Man, this is rough. And you're absolutely right, but, you know, this is Bleed that at the minute probably still ironing out some of the kinks behind the scenes, probably still fleshing out the playbook, figuring out how exactly they want to approach these games in future. Think about what they're going to be like with 2 more weeks of practice, with another few officials under the belt, with more time for the roster to become the 5 fingers on one hand. They're looking really good right now. It's not been the hardest opposition for them. It's not been the roughest ride through the qualifiers, but it's still a matter of you have to win every game that's put in front of you, and they've been doing that today. Can't take that away from them. The longer it goes on, the more we'll see as well. If they make it to closed, if they make it all the way to the RMRs, the potential for the excitement for this team is really there. Cypher again, surprises with the early entry. T&D King on the AWP, strikes back, good for 1. Cirque needs to trade, ready with a rifle. Rips the head off and lays claim to potentially his signature weapon being back in his hands. Black Magic wants to make Fav and disappear. Awkward angle to be in though. Timing's not good for him either. Needs to wait for the rotate, but the dink is good.
Yeah, that quick rummage back into ramp was honestly such a good play from Black Magic. And it's opened up the battlefield, but Divisor's had an absolute nightmare. Complete whiff for all the mobility that Black Magic tried to pull in and try and bait away those players. It has been completely decimated. Black Magic, though, has got one. Lonks gets pushed into a grave. Both players are low, but that bomb defuse is such an awkward position. Even if Black Magic gets one, it's unlikely he can get both. They're going to tickle the bomb out, try and draw the tease. They're playing with their food. They're playing possum. And this is a done deal, Jacky. It's going to be 13-3. Bleed cruise the next round of the qualifiers.